Otter puppies. And she's going to get swimming lessons, and so are they.
Oh, you read this already?
I did because it drew me. I thought, what the heck is that?
No, not
So there, very cute. Oh, the wind makes me crazy. The wind, I could run in circles. I just silly. I think it affects some people like that. Kids you see on the playground doing that.
We have a 3-month.
Yeah, I know, mine too.
no.
If it's sticking too far out, you tell me. Otherwise, never mind.
Okay, we're ready to start and call the meeting to order. We have all of our trustees here except Peter, and I think probably he will be arriving shortly. Welcome to our audience. Thank you for coming. We're always happy to have people join us in person. There's also live streaming for those who can't, and then there's YouTube afterward. So we're trying to be accessible there. We have recognitions.
Yes, we do have recognitions. And one of the things that is so special about Santa Barbara City Colleges is that we recognize the longevity of our employees. And today we have Brandon Lovelace that is a network specialist, and we've got Dan Watkins that's here to, I guess, talk a little bit about Brandon. So if Dan would come down.
Thank you, Superintendent Dr. Beebe, President Croninger, members of the board. Delighted to address you this afternoon in honor of Brandon and 20 years. I've worked with Brandon since I started here 17 years ago and have been fortunate to be his supervisor for the last several years. Brandon actually started as a student, I think, in 1994. And he's sitting right there with his family, beautiful family. So he's been here actually as a student in over 23 years. Currently, our data center and our network, and when we talk about what makes this institution run as far as our network infrastructure, our data center, all of our servers, the data center not only here, but the data centers at Schott and Wake where we run technology, Brandon has touched or configured or manages or maintains all of it. He also maintains all of our data storage and all of our backups. He also manages our Google applications, so Gmail, I mean, just pretty much everything. VMware, so we're doing virtualized desktops and virtualized apps, and he runs all of that with some help from some other technicians, but primarily runs that. And then he also manages our cameras for the security department, so campus-wide. So he just touches and is an integral cog. And when Dr. Beebe says, you know, we can't replace anyone, the person that if we lost, deep,
Just shut it down.
it just, you know, is Brandon.
Close the
I mean, so the other great thing is he's always willing to help out his colleagues. He's there if they need him. He's one of the few people who I can see read a manual. I mean, we actually save hundreds of thousands of dollars in maintenance costs because Brandon can usually fix it or make it work again. He also cares deeply about this institution and making sure everything is running and students and faculty and staff have the access and resources they need as far as IT goes. And so his integrity, his work ethic, he sets this bar very high for all of us to follow. So again, you know, I am so honored that I feel we are incredibly fortunate to have someone of his caliber working for us day in and day out. I've also invited, I'm going to keep my remarks really short, I've invited Dean to say a few words, who's known Brandon his entire time, and then I just have one kind of follow-up note. But Dean, do you want to come down and say a few words about Brandon? Thank you.
Dr. Beebe, President Croninger, members of the board. It's definitely my distinct pleasure to say a few words in praise of Brandon. He has been an integral part of this institution as well as a real success story for computer science. Brandon started out as a student in computer science and was our computer science student of the year from 1996 to 1997. that school year. And then later he transitioned to being a lab teaching assistant for us and was instrumental in moving the department forward technically, as well as being a great help to faculty and students. Brandon continues to be an asset to the computer science department as the person we go to whenever our LTAs can't figure out what's going on. He is very detail-oriented and has a strong grasp of computer science fundamentals, as well as a great head for problem solving. SBCC is well served by Brandon, and he's an excellent representative of the computer science program. He's really a true success story for us. Thank you, Brandon.
So I just have one short note. I always like to say something that they do outside of work. Recently, Brandon has started refereeing for AYSO and the Adult Soccer League. He's been doing that for the last few years. And I've seen it transform him, and I just think it's so great that he contributes his time and volunteers in that way for our youth sports and the fairness. And I know some other refs in AYSO. I used to ref in AYSO. They speak so highly of him and want him to center ref and manage the game, and that type of fairness and integrity that he brings to the game, he brings every day to work. So thank you, Brandon.
As long as he doesn't get hurt and we have to close the doors, I mean.
He does do a lot of running. He does do a lot of running.
The first person I've ever heard who actually reads the manuals. Have you ever tried to read manuals? Good for him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Brandon. That's the end of our longevity reports, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Beebe has suggested that we take one item out of order because we have our consultant here to talk with us now, and it would be helpful. He's right now at the end of the agenda, more or less, and so the question is, does anyone object to moving him up? This is the Campus Center report.
That's good.
Okay. So we'll skip forward to 11.2, the Campus Center report. Anthony?
Yes, so let me ask Shane Fitzgerald to come up to the podium, and as he's coming up, I'll say a little bit. In our annual review of the Campus Center, and we watch it very, very closely, we discovered that we have an opportunity to do some things on a voluntary basis to upgrade the building. And it's going to entail some engineering work, some architectural work, but it's going to be good in terms of being able to make sure that we're moving forward in a positive way with the building. And so we've got Shane Fitzgerald, who's an engineer with Martin and Associates, who actually has had some experience with the building and knows the building from I think about 5 years ago.
Right, 5 years ago.
5 years ago or so. So Shane, I'll just turn it over to you to talk about kind of the plan and strategy for the building itself.
Sure, and thanks to the board for moving me forward in the agenda. I appreciate that, and everybody waiting to hear about other stuff. So as Dr. Beebe said, Shane Fitzgerald with John A. Martin and Associates. We're structural engineers in Los Angeles. I actually worked in Santa Barbara for 6 years in the 90s, so it's nice to come back. Yeah, you know, the campus center, we reviewed the building structurally in 2012, and it was actually following a report that was issued by another firm in 2010 that had kind of done an assessment of the building, looked at the MEP, structural, architectural. So we sort of were brought in as a second opinion to look at the structural items that were listed. So we did that in 2012. We highlighted some items that we think needed to be addressed. You know, we're here today to kind of look at that again and see, you know, where do we take this project to get you to a place where, you know, we're comfortable. You're going to have probably a plan to perhaps replace the building, you know, but we want to get to a point where those items are behind us. So that's the intent of what we're doing here for you. There were really kind of three items in the report that we think needed to be addressed. One was the columns at the base of the building. The concrete columns were decaying, they were spalling, they were corroding, and I believe a local firm handled some detailing a couple of years ago, one of the firms I worked for, a lot of respect for them, but that item is basically gone. So we've encased the bottom of those columns, we've put that behind us. The other one is the top of the roof deck, if you will, the patio, where you have some seating and areas where students can go out and work and congregate and eat. So my understanding is there's a lot of moisture, there's corrosion issues, water's getting in the building, and we believe it to be that level. And you have a local consultant dealing with that and has put a plan together to essentially address that. So 2 of the 3 items really, in our opinion, go away. The third item is really kind of a pure structural one, and it's really about performance of the building as it relates to seismic. We think we've identified 3 areas where if we can do something about this, we'd feel really good. So we've essentially proposed to Dr. Beebe so far in a schematic format that if we move forward, we put 3 concrete walls in, is really what it comes down to. One of which would be in the 1-story portion adjacent to the computer lab. And I walked it today with an architect from KBZ, looking at impact on, programmatically, what would that do to the folks inside, and then, removing the glazing, putting concrete in. There'd be a little bit of foundation work, but it's a pretty simple, isolated area where a concrete wall could go. There's one down in the lower level, which is where food storage, dry foods are stored, and then there's an adjacent supervisor office. So we would look to basically put a concrete wall in that lower level. I think it can be done. I looked at it again today, and I think it's fairly straightforward. And then there's one other location that's also straightforward. It's kind of in the south corner of the campus center, where you have glazing that looks out to the ocean, and the last bay of the building, we want to have that be, and by bay I mean between columns. If you were standing out looking at the building, you have glazing, and then you have a wall, and then you have the doors, and then glazing. I want to take one piece of the building where it's currently glazing, and I'd like to put concrete there so that it stacks, because it's concrete below. I'd like to have it above too. So that would give me really what I believe a building that kind of, like I said, gets us there. So that's in a nutshell what we're proposing moving forward. And I'm happy to answer questions as it relates to that work or otherwise. Again, we've been looking at the building for a bit now, so we're pretty familiar with it. So.
Marty?
Yeah, I'm really pleased that, that we can get some real concrete, I don't mean that as.
No pun intended.
Real solid ideas here that will help. And the 3 walls for seismic, I'm interested, does that bring us up to a certain point, like to an 8-point earthquake or
Right, so.
Just so we know.
Sure, believe it or not, the code actually doesn't categorize building design by magnitude earthquake.
Oh, really?
Right, it actually, when we look at the evaluation of an existing building, the code has performance levels where it's immediate occupancy, like a hospital where you need to get in and serve patients right away, or 911 dispatch or police or fire. Schools are actually under the Division of State Architect, which have a higher level of performance because there's students, you have older students, but K-12 has a younger demographic. So there's a level of safety that's built into the code to address the seismic performance. When you look at an existing building, we have basic safety. I don't want to get too technical here, but there's basic safety objectives that have to be met by the code. It doesn't necessarily correlate to a magnitude 7 or a 6. It's a significant event. It's not your normal 3, 4, 4.5. It's a significant earthquake, the ones that you hear about that we're going to have. So we want to be able to make sure that we can ride that one out.
Okay, this sounds good, but so are we lumped with the K-12?
So yes and
Essentially,
no.
because sometimes they do that and sometimes
So
they don't.
the way DSA, and I just went to an
Yeah.
academy yesterday about plan check. So community colleges and public K-12 schools are all under the jurisdiction of DSA.
Oh, okay.
So you have requirements in the amendments of this California Building Code that are applied to you and K through 12. So in that sense, from a code standpoint, you kind of are. And there's a lot of discussion about whether you should be or, CSU doesn't, UC doesn't. They have their own seismic peer reviewers that look at it. So DSA right now does review all community colleges.
I'm really glad we are, because, I taught in a temporary building for years on an elementary campus, and when we built our new school, we really had to look at these, and these regulations, and I'm really glad that we're part of that. So
Right.
this sounds like a really good deal.
It
And-
is,
And
yeah.
is the concrete wall what we need? Don't we need a steel wall? I mean,
Actually, the building's
Is
a
concrete
concrete
strong?
building, so we would look to be putting material in that's consistent with the building material type.
Oh, okay.
So like this building is concrete, we would look to be filling it in with, and really that comes down to, again, without getting too technical, we want to be compatible. We want to be, from a standpoint of structural stiffness and behavior, we want to have compatible materials that, and you have concrete already, so if we put a concrete wall in and paint it out, it probably aesthetically looks like it was there the whole time.
And it should last as long as the other walls.
Yeah, it'll,
saying, yeah,
absolutely,
that
it'll
makes
be
sense.
detailed and designed in a way that, provides that seismic support you need. It's.
Good, thank
yeah,
you.
You're welcome.
Veronica?
Yeah, no, and again, like Marty, I appreciate this because we went time and meetings in studying this building, learning about this building that was built in 1965, right? And last renovated in 1975. I know we have, the building we're in now is a lot older, but because there was such a big hype about it, the seismic safety of it and how we got the grant and all of that, that for us, our biggest concern was safety. And
Sure.
I think, Marty can agree, we wanted that campus center built yesterday.
Right.
And so it was very sad that
Right.
we couldn't move forward with that. But we have a building that's functioning. People make things happen, not structures. We get that. So I guess what I'm hearing from you is that we can be reassured that with the wisdom of the engineers, things can be put in place and this building is going to be safe. We don't know the future or what's going to happen, but this is going to solve the problem of having it be functional for a period of.
And that was the point I was going to make. We're not talking about a 50-year fix here. And Shane, you may want to talk about that a little bit. Just
Sure.
about the window that we're talking about.
So we acknowledge that the building is old, and we don't expect that old buildings are like new buildings from the standpoint of, performance or detailing or construction. But what we do expect is that there is a level of safety that you're talking about that you get because you have people in it and we need to be safe, right? So if you said, I'm going to use this building till the end of time, it would be a different discussion because then, it's really, I think from a mechanical standpoint, you start adding equipment, you start wanting to put holes in for ducts. Programmatically, it doesn't work, so you have walls that may or may not be coming. So it's a bigger discussion about it, right? It's not just, I can't just go put a concrete wall wherever I want. So, I'm back up. I totally agree with you on the safety. As structural engineers is number one for us. It's getting people out safely of a building when there's a massive earthquake. The building, we want to limit the damage to the building. It's your asset, but we want to make sure nothing falls down on anybody as they're getting out. So there's a lot of different levels of safety. So this idea to add the concrete walls is just purely structural. We think it's good design. We think that we'd be confident and comfortable with that being done so that we can write the letter that says, you're good, you're safe. Now, the 5 to 7, or is it 8 or 9? We don't know when the building is going to go offline and then a new one we replace, but this discussion, we all understand, is about getting you to a place where you can continue to use it confidently for a short period of time before you have plans to probably replace it. That's my understanding of what the discussion is.
Just to clarify, it's my understanding that this is something that we're doing because it's a good idea, not because it's required.
That's a good point. This is absolutely 100% voluntary.
Okay.
This is because it's a good idea. It's been, identified by engineers, other than ourselves even, so it's in writing that this should be something that's looked at and perhaps done, but it's absolutely voluntary. There are no code triggers that you're not doing any work to the building. I've actually talked to DSA about this project already. I called Doug Humphrey, who runs the office in LA, and I said, I have a project. It's a voluntary project. I want to be able to do it streamlined, quickly. I don't want to get thrown through the ringer. Any folks who should say it. It's a tough process, but we want to be able to do it quickly, and we want to be able to do it simply because that's all we think it takes. And he's assured me, Shane, we're not here to get in your way. Anything you do is better than what it is today, so you're the engineer, you tell us what, and so that's the conversation that's been had, and it's a good one, because we want to be able to, you know, not turn this into a science project, but just streamline it and get it done.
And so, just, I know it's too soon to ask the exact cost, but just very ballpark, what do you think you're looking
$1
at?
million.
Okay.
I mean, if I had to ballpark it, the next step would be to get, we can get some content into the drawings where a cost estimator could put some numbers to it. But we've had some discussions with the architect, and we've looked at it, and we think, I sure hope it's not more than $1 million. I mean, $1 million, you know, is the ballpark.
That's all I was asking,
Yeah.
because, you know, $1 million is a whole lot different than some larger numbers.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that 11.8 million is still set aside.
Well, this is the million, or whatever it costs, is
Right.
going to come out of that, though.
That's what I'm saying. So this is, we still have the $11.8 million construction
Right,
fund
exactly.
set there,
Yes,
and
we've
this
got that.
will come from there.
Marty's looking at
I'm
me.
watching it.
I promised her,
Every day
yes,
I
that's,
count it.
Well, and I,
Lindsay counts it every day, to make sure that it's
I
there.
mean, I have like my campus center Lindsay presentations and Julie, like, I mean, this was very close and dear to our heart.
I know.
And,
We're going to get you your building at some point.
They're gonna wheel us up to it.
no, maybe Marty and I are gonna put our name on it if we can figure out how to do that. Okay.
But this takes it forward. This takes it forward into the future for the time frame that we hope we need for ultimately replacing. Craig?
The time frame. What kind of period of time are you looking at?
You're not on.
The time frame. What kind of period of time are we looking at? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Just a ballpark, 20? I don't know.
I mean, I could tell you that what we've talked about, I don't know if that's
Yeah,
consistent still, but we've talked about, you know, in the 4 to 7 range.
Okay.
I think you also, if you get there, you keep an eye, I mean, you keep an eye on it the whole time.
Right.
And have a program that looks at the building and makes sure you're comfortable with it. And at the same time, if you get to the end of that time period, you're asking yourself over again is, what's the next step? You know, where am I? How much money do I have, and what's the next step? Peter?
A different question related to time, but from the time we get drawings, what do you anticipate being the time required for completion?
So I think from the time we permit from DSA, which would probably, I'd like to say ambitiously, you know, we're approaching the end of the year, which is tough for them. Let's say we had a spring permit. I think that a construction period of 4 months might be something we're looking at. And we're doing it in a way where we can maybe do most of the work from the outside. So this one upper level wall, I'm thinking we can cut the slab from the outside, you know, trying to, you know, keep in mind the folks that are inside and limit the disruption. But that all comes in, that affects the timing, I guess is my point. So depending on how we strategize that. But, you know, 4 to 6 months, I think, realistically, to get a contractor in, on site, execute the work. You know, it'll be a DSA project, so DSA will have a punch card and they'll have inspectors, and, you know, they'll be required to come out and look and process it and get it cleared out. So that takes time too, but that's my best guess. I'm not a contractor, but
Thank
that's
you.
probably what I'd say, sure.
And just on a side note, I know, Dr. B, you probably know, but, so we're currently taking care of whatever's going, the water that was going into those classrooms, and that's been taken care of. And
Right.
so I'm sure we've looked at mold or, I know, we've been in a drought, so I know it hasn't rained that much, but it is an old building, and so, you know, I have allergies, so I know people are very sensitive to not toxic mold, but even just your regular household mold, and nobody's gonna walk around with bleach to clean it off, you know, but we're looking at all that just to make sure that that classroom is fresh and you can actually work in there and.
Yes, we've got 3 classrooms down below there that have been affected by the leaking
Yeah.
deck that has the water come down. Actually, the sealant, or the decking waterproofing barrier is in your agenda, on your agenda
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
For the 215,000, I think, which is a savings, by the way, because originally we were looking at 275. I just thought I'd get that in there. So that, yes, to answer your question, We get the water barrier on the deck. That's step one, and then we start remediating those classrooms, clearing them out, gutting them. I think they've actually already started clearing them out. And then mold treatment, whatever else needs to be done, and bring them back online.
Okay. Because I'll go in there and I'll know if it's not. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you'll be our tester.
I will, I'm just kidding.
She's our canary.
Yeah.
So,
No,
Well,
thank
that-
you for everything.
Absolutely.
any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Shane.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you, Shane.
Okay, going back to the beginning of our agenda, we have approval of the minutes. And my suggestion, since I was absent for 2 of the meetings, and traditionally we abstain for that, why don't we take September 28th and October 12th together? Could I have a motion to approve those?
I'll move to approve.
Jonathan moves, Craig seconds. Any comments, questions, changes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And now the meetings of, special meeting October 24th and regular meeting October 26th. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Marty, second. Jonathan? Questions, comments, changes? All in favor? Aye. Oops, I'm abstaining, I'm sorry. That was the point of
You
separating.
don't have to abstain.
I abstained.
It's not necessary.
You can say yes
Well,
if you want to.
You know,
You
can.
you're probably right, Craig, because it's on video and
I
all
think
of that.
you were
but-
one of the people that told me I didn't have to abstain in the
Well,
past.
we know we didn't have to, because when we got elected,
All
we
right.
approved all of Luis
Yeah,
Villegas minutes.
and we weren't even on the board.
All right, order, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody, and I'll abstain.
There you go. You did it.
Public comment is our next item, and we have 2 people who've asked to speak. Charlotte Rocher? I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name.
Hi, President Croninger, members of the Board of Trustees. I'm here today to address you regarding the ongoing issues the students have encountered with SBCC ASG. In the spring of 2017, positions were open to an electoral process that was supposed to be fair, open to all, and democratic. This proved to be false, and we are now in a situation where the votes of the students have been made a joke of. Some of the board members of the ASG violated our bylaws and school board policies in order to prevent me from filling my student body elected position as president of the ASG. In August, I was recognized by the school as the ASG president. Bylaws were then violated to form a committee that had no authority to oust me. Despite my fighting back as best as I could, the ASG pushed me out of office through manipulation of the system and political bullying. Also, school policies and procedure were violated. The school turned their back on me, entering action under these illegitimate activities. To compound the problem, in September, the sitting ASG was tasked with the appointment of new officers. Of the 11 people they appointed, only 2 were women. All of the highest ranking positions were offered to men. There were several highly qualified women overlooked or sidestepped. I myself, as a woman, have been ousted, and there have been other complaints of gender bias associated with the current ASG officers. This, I believe, is the subject of a current Title IX investigation. In 2017, in California, I cannot believe we still encounter such gender inequality. I wrote you all an extended letter in which I outlined the specifics of the situation and where I ask you to please take action so that we, the students, see our democratic process respected. In BBs and APs 5,400, 5,410, and 5,420, the college is charged with overseeing the ASG fair election process and is to provide facilities and oversight to the ASG. The college has failed with its charge, and I ask the Board of Trustees to please step in, take action, and resolve this as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Cornelia Alsheimer.
Honorable members of the Board of Trustees, President Croninger, Dr. Beebe. I just wanted to briefly let you know that, as I had announced a few weeks ago, the Faculty Association will hold a plenary session this fall. We invited the Academic Senate to co-sponsor the event. It is now scheduled for Friday of next week, the 17th of November. We will discuss the college budget and the 5-year projection, as well as the underlying parameters on enrollment, on staffing, and on efficiency. This plenary session is intended to be a forum for all faculty to discuss these extremely important issues that affect all of us and strike at the core of what we are doing. So in 2 weeks, I will report back. Thank you.
Thank you, Cornelia. Okay, we have gotten to item 5, 5.1, report by Academic Senate. Dr. Priscilla Butler.
Good evening, members of the board, President Croninger and Dr. Beebe. So there's one main thing I wanted to report on today, and then I also wanted to follow up on one of the suggestions made at the last board meeting. So the main focus of my report today is on the progress we're making that Cornelia also talked about, addressing the question of college size and efficiency. At yesterday's Senate meeting, we discussed the Educational Master Plan Annual Progress Report, which is an annual update where we assess how we're doing on all of the strategic directions and goals in the report, as being an appropriate place to document our plans around this. And you know, here we are at a college. We love our acronyms. So here's a new one for you, ASEMP, which stands for what we're tentatively calling the Abbreviated Strategic Enrollment Management Plan, because a full enrollment management plan is an extensive document. It might be 20 or 30 pages. And our interest is in having, reaching some agreement about those two important issues, and in an abbreviated plan so that they're written down and everybody understands, agrees on what they are, and then writing a more extended document. And I'm not speaking on behalf of our EVP, of course, because he would be central to that, but we do want to work together in that enrollment management plan. So the ASEMP, as we're talking about it now, we want to bring it forward for discussion in a number of different ways. So yesterday we had an initial discussion at Senate. At the November 14th Planning and Resources Committee meeting, they will be focusing on that. Planning and Resources is a subcommittee of the Academic Senate. Cornelia just mentioned the co-sponsored plenary on November 17th. And then this will come back to the Senate on November 29th. So it is, as I relayed in my last report, it is our intention that this semester we gain clarity on these issues. So in my December report, I'll be able to give you details about that. I'd also like to follow up on one of the suggestions that was made, I believe by Trustee Nielsen at the last meeting. There was some discussion about topics that might be of interest, important for us to talk about together. And one of the proposals was for more information about study abroad and related programs. And this might make an excellent topic for a joint Academic Senate board meeting in early spring. So we look forward to the possibility of scheduling that and hope you are open to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you.
Associated Students, Josh Villanova.
I'm still back on this ASEMP thing. Was that Dr. Drell's acronym?
It was, you know, because we have an educational master plan, which is the EMP. So to have an enrollment management plan would be EMP2.
Got you.
So it'd be very confusing. So then we went from there.
I got you.
Hello, Dr. Beebe, President Croninger, members of the board. I know I gave a long report last time, and I actually didn't send you my report this time. I apologize ahead of time. I'll send that after I go back and finish up work tonight. I do have three things that we did in the last couple weeks. One of them is allocating $2,000 to support feminine hygiene products in the bathrooms on campus, the female bathrooms on campus. Another one is the fact that we're going to be going to a statewide conference next week to vote on state student-wide issues. And the last thing, which is kind of big, is the ASG has opened up an internship program. So this is supposed to, this internship program, the goal of this is to, it's going to help the ASG with visibility as well as open up opportunities for students to test their skills and work in an innovative environment. It's going to be a test run. It's the first time it's ever been done, and I think that the application and the whole process is going to be similar to our normal process to getting on the ASG, and it's going to help students, it's going to help ease the process and get them used to just getting on ASG.
Okay. Questions, anyone? Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Liz Auchincloss, classified.
Good afternoon, President Croninger, members of the board, Dr. Beebe. At our meeting this week, we had a lot of discussion about what's called WRAP, which is the Workforce Reduction Through Attrition Program. And all of our members understand the need for this, just that we discussed the rankings and the possible impacts to classified staff and to management when this takes place. But the process, we explained the process to the members of the CCG, and everybody understands that. And so we're going to wait and see what happens. We know there's still some parts to discuss, some positions grant funded that we still need to talk about at CPC, but we're looking forward to the end result. And then we also talked about guided pathways. We have several of our members, actually most of them are participating in the guided pathways, and there's been some meetings of the higher level group, and they've been reporting back, and they're very excited. Some of them have said they've learned more than they've ever since they've been at the college by what's going on, and they actually complimented Priscilla on her management of the meetings they attended. They said she's very good at listening to everybody and taking great notes and making sure the running of the meeting as well, so I wanted to thank her for that. And we talked about sustainability and the way classified staff can get involved in that project that's coming up. And then we also talked a little bit about the promise and what's going on with the state law and that kind of thing. So we had a good meeting. It was just this week. So, any questions? Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Anthony, your report.
So as we finish up our week 12 at for fall semester here, faculty, staff, administrators are super busy trying to keep up with things. They've been, there's a lot of things that have happened since the last board meeting. We've all been working busily at different things. I've been quite busy myself. I was the team lead for the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative for College of the Canyons. So that was an interesting project. I was also the accreditation team chair for a follow-up visit for Los Angeles City College. We just completed that on Tuesday. I was also a speaker at the Leap Forward Regional Leadership Academy. This is for aspiring vice presidents that are looking to become presidents, and so we had a regional academy, and I was one of the presenters for that. I had the honor of presenting the Distinguished New Teacher Award at the Salute for Teachers for Santa Barbara County, and that was at the Music Academy of the West. And Miss Kelly Keene from San Marcos School received that award, and that was really quite a thrill to be able to go to that. Quite a black tie event, and really fantastic. And then yesterday, some of you attended, along with me, the Partners in Education breakfast, and this year I'm the president of the board of directors for Partners in Education, and I know that Marty and others have been involved with that organization, and about 400 people that attended that particular event, so that was quite exciting. I tell you all that because none of it, quite frankly, rises to the level of what I've been doing this week, which has been attending classrooms and visiting faculty and students in those classrooms. And I have had, so far, I've visited 20 classrooms. I have 84, Paulina would tell me 84 yet to attend. And so I've got some weeks ahead of me, and we've scheduled all of these, but everything from accounting to zoology and everything in between is in terms of the kinds of classes that I visited. And I've got to tell you without a whisper of a doubt that the faculty are doing a phenomenal job in teaching, preparing the students in these classes, in the subjects that they're teaching. It's just absolutely amazing. Last year, I did a listening tour where I went around to, so that's,
I shut this. And I'll be sending another email. And so specifically
who are in the criminal justice system, and they need our help. So I was very pleased to hear Santa Barbara City College identified, along with UCSB, as an indication of what ought to happen within that community.
and we're part of it because I signed us.
Happily share it.
I'm interested. We could get it posted, actually. Angie could probably post it for us.
The website.
Other folks want.
And so since these are public meetings, when you make a bold claim like that about our college, there's different groups, there's different people. Sure. And so I don't know that that generalizes to everybody. So I want to make sure that we come to the table with things that we perceive, that we think, and don't make it a claim, because claims usually need to be supported by evidence. And so I feel strong about that, and I want to make sure that we are respectful of our perceptions versus evidence and claims.
David?
Sure. Yeah, so Equity Committee, I believe Luis is the head of that. As far as our student government knows, Equity Committee has not met yet. And we need a student representative on that. I mean, that's our 9+1 rights. That's something that we kind of have to do with student issues. It doesn't meet, and that's kind of like one in equity, students were turned away. I don't have the evidence for that. And with the sheriff attendance, there were no students there at all. To speak to this, I really had no idea that he was coming here, so, yeah.
Yeah, my to is to be thought about. I will add issues about it, but it was also talking about the UK and France, Germany, Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Central and Eastern Europe, and there were some extremely impressive people commenting and bringing things forward, as well as a complaint about the lack of a Latino panel member when this was central to the subject, and they read that out and they talked about it, which was, they said, that's correct. We tried, but we didn't try hard enough. And they apologized, so it was interesting. I would also just briefly return to the Partners in Education, because I went to that as well, and I was really impressed by the group. No one mentioned this was 7 o'clock in the morning that we had 400 people out there. There was a panel discussion moderated or really directed by asking the questions by our Jeff Green. He did a terrific job. It was a group of 3 companies who consider local cottage what am I remembering?
MedTech, I think.
MedTech and Montecito Bank and Trust. And they consider it part of, they encourage businesses to hire paid interns, and 2 of our students are interns there and did the videos that were part of the program. And they also encourage things like computer donations for families who don't have computers. So it's a terrific organization, and it's executive, was it Susan Salicido, Superintendent County Schools, and Chelsea Duffy, Executive Director. I've forgotten which one, but they called out Anthony for the support he has given that group and said that they really felt it was remarkable, and so I also wanted to mention that. It was terrific to see the companies who are putting together those programs and helping the kids, so.
Marcia, I was on that board for 10 years, and to let you know what dedicated people we have in this community, you know, on these, it used to be called the Industry Education Council, and it switched over to Partners in Education. They meet every month at 7 a.m.
Yes, we do.
The first time that I saw it on my calendar as mayor, I thought, that's got to be a mistake. It's got to be 7 p.m., but it was 7 a.m. So good for them, and, you know, just dedicating a lot to our education, to the children in this, and teens, you know, in this South Coast. It's amazing what they've done.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I was so impressed with the MedTech, I think it was tutoring 8th graders who were in danger of failing 8th grade. And they had a video with the kids talking about what it meant to them and how it was so important to their basically turning around and passing 8th grade. So it's great stuff.
So before we move on, can I say something?
Of course.
We had an election on Tuesday.
We did.
And one of our own was elected to the Santa Barbara City Council. And she is, I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, you know, he said, all we need is 3 qualities in anybody that's on a council or on a board. We need somebody who's warm enough that you feel like going up and talking to them. And secondly, somebody who's very smart. Intelligence was important. And third, they have to care about, you know, either the school or the community. And all 3 of those things were in Kristen Snedden, and she just ran an amazing campaign. A very wonderful person, and she's on our faculty here. She teaches science. What?
Geology.
Oh, is she geology? Oh.
Her son goes to Santa Barbara High.
Oh, that's very good. But anyway, they were thrilled to have her coming onto the council, because now they can talk about climate change with somebody there. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for
With the brain there, yeah.
Thank you for
So
bringing
no,
that
she's
up.
just, I think we need to send a congratulations to her, you know, through you, if we can do that.
Yep.
Okay,
We'll
good.
do that. And I also sent a message to Kathy
Kathy Murillo. who's
Murillo, yeah,
new mayor.
so
Yeah,
we're on it.
good, thank you. Mhm.
It is perhaps instructive to know that we now have 2 members on the city council who were former students at Santa Barbara City College. Kristen was one of them. And I have to brag, I say both of them were my students. The other was Greg Hart.
Good job, Professor Hadley.
I take full credit.
Yes, you should.
You're even in the correct subject.
You actually have some very good students there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never the teachers, just the students.
Okay, well, moving along, we are developing our consent agenda now. We have Human Resources, Sections 7.1 through 7.4, Ed Programs 8.1 and 8.2, and Business Services 9.1 through basically 9.6. So the question is whether we should pull any of those items.
I mean, I just have a question on 2 of them, but we can move, you know, and then just discuss them and then just approve them. Like, I don't have to pull them. I don't have a reservation. I just want to ask.
Which ones?
9.6, and then I just have a clarification on the placeholder. I mean, it's exciting, I see counseling, and I just want to know if we're hiring more counselors, or we're just thinking of having 10 adjuncts on hold, or under HR.
Okay, so,
I mean, it's a good thing, I just wondering. I had never seen that placeholder, I don't think, on the agenda. Had you guys? I don't know.
I'm not sure which one she's talking, which one are you talking about, Veronica, for the
7
Me?
point something.
placeholder?
Oh, I'm talking about, this computer's so fast, Angie, it's like left and right. 7.4?
7.4,
I can't find it now.
short-term personnel.
Oh, 7.4?
Is it placeholder or something?
which one? Have we figured out which one there?
7.4.
Short-term personnel placeholders at the bottom of the page there?
Is that what it says? I don't know, never mind.
Here you go.
It's good. I'm just wondering what a placeholder means. Maybe you can just tell us what a placeholder means.
We have 10 of
Yeah.
them. That's
Yeah, that's,
a good question.
Yeah, go ahead. Mona can help us with this.
Good evening. Good question, though. But we do have placeholders for hourly employees when we know that we will have a need, but they're not academic counselors. They're short-term hourly employees that we will need, but they haven't identified a person or exactly, most times it's the person that they haven't identified yet. But in order for us to move forward, we need to have a placeholder so that we don't have issues with payroll or anything like that. So the board does periodically approve the placeholders.
So they're in academic
counseling.
but they're not
That's the
academic
department.
counselors,
Got it.
right?
Yes, those are the departments.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. I mean, it's
Yes.
application period, the students are gonna get their letters, that department always gets slammed. The more you can give them, I know we don't have money.
There you go.
But the more you can give them, I think that's great.
Okay, so that takes care of that.
Yes. And then-
9.6, did
And then
you
my
wanna-
only other question was, and maybe you'll tell us, Dr. Beebe, is I know that this will be guided by the college educational master plan. And so at some point, are we going to review that, update that, and just look at how, there's a lot of things in there.
In the educational master plan?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and I know that Dr. Butler and others are looking at that. They look at it every year. It's an annual process to update that. And I don't know if Dr. Butler wants to say anything about it, but it's in progress right now. And so at some point, when I guess it gets closer to completion, yeah.
So I guess my main thing would be, I would want to see an updated education master plan before this facilities master plan. Because if the facility master plan is going to be guided by the education master plan, then we need to know what's in the master plan so that then that can lead that. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Dr. Butler?
So each fall, the College Planning Council reviews the EMP's annual progress report, and the EMP itself is an attachment to that. We don't normally have significant changes to the EMP. There might be small things that we notice need to be updated, but it's certainly a reference point for all of the others. And in the EMP, and I think it's good if it can be attached to some of these items, there's a visual diagram that we spent an eternity to reach agreement on, which shows the interrelationship of all of the plans, including how the facilities master plan fits in. So that might be helpful as a reference.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. And so I guess what my main thing is, given that we just repealed 2 board policies, there's a lot of important conversations, and we talked about a very important recommendation of seeing some things in an education or master plan. I don't want a facilities master plan to come before this, because if this is supposed to guide the facilities, then we need to see them in tandem working together. We want to make sure that we get a big picture. And I don't know what the order of that looks like, but basically, if they follow each other, then we need to make sure that they're.
So the Educational Master Plan's annual progress report, we're planning to have a note in there about, because now we're talking about another plan, the ASEMP, right? Because the enrollment management issues are more directly relevant to an enrollment management plan.
Yeah, that's fine, and I don't want to get into that. My main thing is, it says in there that the facilities is going to be guided by this, so we need to make sure that this is looking good, so that then it's following what it should.
No, logically, that makes perfect sense to me. And so they're working on the educational master plan update right now, the ACE.
So the EMP annual progress plan will come to CPC before the end of the semester.
Okay.
And the educational master plan will be coming along with it. The ASIMP is yet another piece, and it will all come together. And I think, so not to speak to this, but Lindsay, I think that the facilities master plan is not coming to the board until February. So these pieces will come before February.
Yeah, that was going to be my point is that, you know, the FMP, the facilities master plan is going to be completed in about February. So we'll be able to pull in the educational master plan components and then fold those in, feather those right into the facilities master plan along the lines of what you're talking about, so.
Okay, and just for ample time for us to look at it and make sure that, you know, we have a very amazing participatory governance. And so I just want to make sure that Lindsay's department moves forward, that the very important goals that we have in the education master plan move ahead. And also that as I know it says, oh, we'll get reports, but like, I really want to get serious about not just having a report, but I want to have a real discussion of what the data says, because some of these strategic goals are important, and they made it into the educational master plan because everybody thought they were important. And so this is a big thing that we're undertaking here, and so I want to make sure that everybody has time to review and have their say, and that we can all participate and be happy about it.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, I guess we discussed it without pulling it. Craig, did you have something you wanted to pull?
Yeah, I think we should, just as a formality, we should pull 9.5 because there's a mistake on, I think, who the contract winner was.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
going
it's
to
just a
correct,
typo.
we're going to correct that as a
The
typo.
Western-
in-
Then we don't have
yeah.
to pull it out, we just leave it in there.
Well, you're correct that we need to point that
But
out before we
procedurally,
vote on it.
as long as
Yeah.
it's pointed
Yeah.
out.
No, that's
It's not the
good. It's not granite construction, it's
Western water.
Right.
Western
You
Water.
just have to read
Yeah.
carefully to
Yeah.
figure out somebody made it.
There was a cut and paste slip. So, anybody else? Anybody else want to pull other than the discussion we've had? Okay, can I have a motion to approve 7.1 through 7.6? And as to item 9.5, that's the one, isn't it, Angie?
Yes.
We are changing the name of the contractor who won the award to Western Waterproofing. It's not Granite Construction, but it's Western Waterproofing. And so that's bid number 727. So on that basis, with that qualification, could I have a motion to approve? Jonathan, Craig second. Any other further comments, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. That moves us forward substantially.
Marcia, would it be, I'm reflecting on your concerns about the interrelationship and sequence of the facilities plan and the educational master plan. Might it not be a useful thing to do to set aside a future meeting where we can have a sort of heuristic and holistic look at how these plans interact, so that we're all truly well-versed in how this is supposed to work, and the permutations of the plan as they have waltzed through our deliberations.
No, I think that's an excellent idea. The retreat that is coming up on the 8th is starting the process of having the board understand facilities in greater depth. I think it's probably too soon for what you just described, but it makes sense to have that conversation with, you know, a greater level of knowledge about facilities, a greater level of knowledge perhaps about the educational master plan, and then bring it together.
Sure.
we could look at early next year for that, probably.
Yep.
Work for you?
Yeah, that works.
All right, we are at 10.1, resolution number 10, augmentation of revenue. And one of the things I noticed about this I wanted to mention was it's IPI money, which is the institutional improvement. Anthony, am I getting that name right? And that means it's extra money that we get from the Chancellor's office for implementing the subject that we had an IPI on, right?
Right, and Dr. Jarrell has, actually, the Academic Senate, we've got a whole plan of
Right.
things that incorporates.
Right. So I'm just saying, good, we got extra money from the Chancellor's office to help. So,
That's the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative,
yes,
IEPI, or IPI, as you say.
right. Okay, so Angie, this is a resolution.
We don't have a motion.
Roll call.
Oh, sorry, I need the motion.
How about a motion?
Good idea.
Motion to approve both resolutions.
All right, motion to approve the augmentation and the transfers from ending fund balances, which is 10.2. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Marty? Now, Angie.
Trustee Kugler?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Haslam?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Student Trustee Pambechi?
Aye.
And that brings us to 11.1, the Faculty and Staff Diversity Annual Report. Mona Lisa?
They do them together. Yeah.
Good evening again. I wanted to present our update on our numbers for the Equal Employment Opportunity Plan. Recently, you approved some changes to the plan, and one of our requirements is that we provide an annual report to the Board of Trustees to update you on our demographics, where we are as far as diversity, what our applicant pools look like. So I wanted to take maybe about 10 minutes or so to go over some of the numbers. I know it's a lot of numbers, but we can get through them real quickly. So we start off with the student profile. We haven't really decided what we're aiming at, and we really don't have goals or targets because that's old language. But we do like to look at our student profile to see what do our current demographics look like, so that we have an idea of where we want to go, where we have gaps in our staffing, and continue to work on those efforts to diversify our workforce and provide the professional development that's needed to increase cultural awareness of our population. So the first slide there that you'll see is on our student profile, which you're probably familiar with. So we're pretty much, that speaks for itself there. 39% white, Anglo-American, and then we have Hispanic, 33%, which are the largest groups in the college, and then smaller percentages of the others. So we'll move to the next slide, which will give you the overall demographics for the fall of 2016. And this is divided into those categories there. The first one is all management, classified and academic administrators. And we had 47 for fall of 2016. And then there's the breakdown there. So you'll see that our largest chunk there is 26% Latino, Hispanic, and then we have 66% Anglo. So this gives you a profile of where we were there. We're always a year behind because we'll be reporting this year's numbers around the same time next year. The next 5 categories, just go back one, starting with professional, non-faculty through skilled service maintenance, those are all part of the classified workforce. But the way we divide them up when we're reporting is for the purposes of looking where we are, because we can say that we're 40% Latino or 30% African American, But when you look at the numbers to see where we are more diverse, you'll see that they're going to be concentrated in the lower, like the service areas, and secretarial will have a lot in technical. And that's important. And the reason why the Chancellor's Office and Title V wants us to report this way is we would like to see some movement going upward, moving some of our employees through the professional growth process into either faculty, into dean positions. As you can see here, in the service maintenance area, which would be our custodians and food service workers, and that, we are doing very well there. We have 40 Hispanic, which is 74% of that workforce. But if you look at the Anglo there's 17%, so it's somewhat underrepresented with Anglo based on our population in the city, but overrepresented in that area in Latino in that category. But then you look at, you go up to professionals, which are our higher level positions in the classified service that require a bachelor's degree or above. A lot of our human resources positions are in there, our top level accounting positions, our analyst positions are there. It's good, it's 23%, there's 7, and then we have 61%. So if we could move those numbers, that would be good through professional growth, through in-service that we have throughout the college. That would probably be a direction that we want to go. So I'm working with the Equal Employment Opportunity Committee to come up with developing a plan on how we're going to get there. So a lot of this will be through professional development activities. So we can go to the next one. The next slide looks at the executive management over time. So this is our longitudinal data from 2012 through 2016-17. And I wanted you to just pay attention to the number there. Let's look at the Hispanic number there, only because you'll see 0, 0, 0, 0 going from 2012 through 15-16. It appears that we hired a lot last year, but what happened is that we scrubbed the data. We cleaned it up because some of these folks were either unidentified on the database because of some of the fields that we were using that weren't the correct fields. So working with institutional research, we scrubbed the data to come up with a real number for 16-17. So it's not that we did a lot of hiring in those groups. Now we're at a new, I'm going to call it our new restart on where we really are. And now moving forward, we'll have accurate data moving forward. So you'll see where we had unknowns, we had 8, 7, 7, 6 over time. But then we brought that down to 0. So we were able to identify where they actually belong. So that's good data that will help us, evaluate what we need to do. So in management, we had 47 for 16-17, and we hired 4. And there's additional information on the 4 later on in the presentation, so we could move forward. In the classified staff, this is looking at all 5 of those categories, professional through service and maintenance overall, so that we can take a picture that way. And you'll see there that the same thing is happening here where we had unknowns. We had 80, 81, 78, and 71. Now we have mostly all of those are identified. So we only had 4 unknowns. And if you can look at the Hispanic line there, it went from 18 to 118. Not really based on hiring, though, based on true identification on where these employees belonged.
So just a point of clarification here.
Mm-hmm.
You're suggesting that data from 2015, 16, and older is not accurate because of misplacement?
Yeah, misplacement and using the wrong fields that weren't really populated. So those unknowns were true unknowns, so it wasn't really inaccurate. The wrong fields were being used, and looking at all the fields over time, I think our banner system evolved, and we were pulling the data from old fields where we should have been pulling them from these other fields.
So 2016, 17, that column is
That's correct.
Good.
So that'll be our benchmark moving forward. Question?
Yeah, so for the management personnel, I'm wondering if you may have an idea of what changed from 15-16 and before to 16-17. Did we change our practices? Like the jump for Hispanic, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
0.
part of the scrubbing the data and making sure we were pulling from the right field, so we were
Oh, I
able
see,
to
so-
identify them.
Okay,
yes.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And so,
I have a question. I'm trying to sort through, because scrubbing the data, of course, makes it harder to interpret, but looking at 16, 17, and I'm not saying that's not what you should do, you should, but I'm trying to figure out which is the data that we should be looking at. And I guess what I'm coming up with is, just to take an example here, full-time faculty for 16, 17, we have, that should be good data, and we have 19% Hispanic. Am I right?
you're on slide number, what's the number at the bottom there? We're trying to.
I'm on
catch up with
page
you.
12.
12, go to,
Yeah.
12.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what we can
So
compare
yes,
to.
on full-time faculty, the same, you'll find somewhat of the same there. What we're looking at for 16, 17 will be our official data. We were able to move those unknowns over to known categories, and moving forward, we have that right now. So yes, 16,
Okay.
17 is what we should be relying on for accurate data.
And where I was going with that is, and this is just an example because it shows up in all the categories, I think, that the comparable diversity for students is 33% for
33 and
Hispanics.
39, yeah.
Okay, so that would be kind of the comparison point. We have data for 16, 17, and then we have demographics that are current. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Comparing faculty and students.
Right,
Right.
comparing our diversity among faculty with our diversity among students and, diversity among classified, diversity among students, I mean, all those different groups.
Yeah, and there's different ways to approach this. We could look at our student data, look at our local demographics in the city of Santa Barbara, look at our service area for the college, and then maybe come up with an average, and maybe, that'll give us an idea of maybe where our gaps are, not necessarily goals or targets, but where we could target our marketing and recruitment in those areas. So it's good information that as we evolve as a committee, we'll be exploring different ways to improve some of these numbers. Yeah. So we can go back, let's see. So, go to, I think it's one more. So classified, that's looking at it as a whole, and then we're going to go now to the categories, which is the next one. So there's your professional non-faculty, and as you can see, we had 31 in 16, 17, and we were able to move a little bit. That group is not as large, so of course we don't have as much to correct there. So we could move along there. But what it does, go back one there, please. What it does show is that we're pretty, because the numbers are so low. So if you look at our Asian population there, just dropping by 2 makes a difference, So small numbers really impact us when we lose one person. So and then again, the identifying of the Hispanic there, 7, it went from 0 to 23, but really just based on identifying where they belong as well. So we can move to the next one. Secretarial clerical, that's pretty self-explanatory who's in that group. There, what happened with this one, look at the total number there. So you'll have 122, 134, 130, 130, and then 40. Many of these were not categorized in the EEO category that the Chancellor's Office tells us that they should be. So many of our technical positions and some of our paraprofessionals were categorized in the secretarial clerical. So we don't have 130 clerical secretarial people around here, and if we do, I want to know where they're at, So there are only 40. So that reduced that number, but you'll see an increase in some of those other categories. So not only were we dealing with the unknown category there, but we were dealing with making sure that they're in the appropriate EO categories. So 16, 17 will be our new restart benchmark there. And so we have those percentages in that last column. And then, let's moving to the next, there's a technical professional. So if you'll see there, we have 85, 85, 87, 87, and then 170, because we moved some of those that were miscategorized in the secretarial clerical, where they were really more like technicians or, you know, paraprofessionals, and that's good. Now we know where they're at, we're good there, and then we move some of the unknowns over to an ethnic category there. So, good work, and it's the HR team really worked hard on getting this, working with the various departments to get this right. And so we're glad that now we're at a good point where we could really evaluate our progress in these areas. We'll move to the next one, skilled crafts.
Mona,
That one pretty,
I'm sorry, just a quick question. No worries. I was wondering what EEO is.
Equal employment opportunity.
Okay. And so there are categories given by the Chancellor's office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just wondering why didn't, just to identify the problem, why didn't we categorize parallel to?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. What happened, well, they were categorized a long time ago, and they were placed, I think that maybe there was a training gap on what group belongs where. So when we went into that field that gives them the categories, they were just placed in the wrong category. It could be that they were defined slightly differently too, but I think most of it was just, this is the way we're gonna place them. And then when we went in there, we found out that they were in the wrong category. So we fixed that field, and then both IR and HR now are on the same page on how they should be categorized. So skilled crafts, we really don't have many. I think that with the budget reductions, we probably went to singletons there on our plumbers, electricians, carpenters, if we ever had those. Where most organizations maybe had 2 of each, we probably are down to singletons in each of those crafts. So the numbers aren't really high there. We had maybe 1 person retire, so it brought it down to 5. That's pretty self-explanatory there, but that would be our journeyman crafts people. And then service maintenance, this is where we have our custodians, our security personnel, our food service personnel, and those look like they were categorized pretty accurately there. The only thing that we were doing differently there is identifying a lot of unknowns, and now we're identifying those. So if you'll look at the Hispanic there, it went from 19% to 74%, and that's all good data that we can now use moving forward. Then we'll go to the next one, and now we start in with our faculty. Our faculty, we also had, the numbers are pretty good because there's only 1 category. You can't really do anything wrong there, but our unknowns were an issue there, if you'll look at those numbers. So we went from 37 unknowns in 15-16 to 0, and that helped the numbers in other categories. All right. And this is a good slide to look at. How do we compare statewide? If you look at statewide, it shows 15% on the statewide number, and we're at 19% in Hispanic. Asian Pacific Islanders, 9.9% statewide, we're at 3%, but we also have to look at what our demographics are here as well. So we can go to the next one there. Adjunct faculty, we had 510 in 16-17, and that is a number that sometimes when you look at the chancellor's numbers and maybe even some of our other reports that we've had, they convert into full-time equivalents. These are actually head counts, so there'll always be a difference, like even with the FCMAT reporting, because they're using full-time equivalents versus head counts that we use for this type of reporting. And here, the only thing that we did there with the unknowns is we actually didn't do a good job with. It's harder to do the adjunct faculty correction there, so we're working on that area to try to move some of those unknowns, but because I guess they're more itinerant and they're temporary, they tend not to report as much, so that is an accurate number there. So we have movement there, we have, we're pretty static right there. Hispanic went up to 62 there. You know what, I think that we might have a problem with that slide, because I thought that we had fixed the unknowns on that one, so I may have to come back or maybe send something. I think that there's something going on with this slide here. That 67 number fell, if I remember, so we probably just forgot to change that cell right there on this slide. So I'll come back to you or send it through correspondence to you. So we can go on to the next one, and this is looking at our applicant pools. This is 13-14, where they're coming from, what they look like, what our applicant flow looks like for 13-14. We had, these are just numbers and not percentages, so it's sort of hard to tell. We have volume, we have, if you'll see, we had 547 Hispanic applicants in 13-14 over all of those areas. And then 1,249 in our Anglo-White, and then we do identify those that identify as 2 or more races for the applicant flow part of it. And so that's just data to look and see how we have evolved. So if you go to the next slide, 14-15, 964 Hispanic, 1933, so it gives us more comparison data to see, do we need to do a better job of targeting our recruitment there? 15-16 is the next one. Then we had a reduction there, probably because we were reducing our hiring by this point, I would think. And when you look at our data for 15-16 for faculty, we're always using that applicant pool to hire for the following school year, not for the same school year, academic year. So 16-17, we had the reduced numbers again. We only had 421 Hispanic Latino, which is the 2 largest groups is what I'm looking at, and then 893 there. So we had 59 positions there to fill total. And then we'll go to the next one, which is just a comparison. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is just something that was in the EO plan, so I put it in there. So it's just a comparison of our applicant pools versus our demographics. To me, it really doesn't tell you too much, but it's data that we're tracking, because our applicant pool really has nothing to do with what our total demographic is in the college, but it's just data to show here. The important part is the top part, I think, and maybe even the bottom, but our applicant pools, we had positions recruited. We had 60, 75, 75, and 59. If you look at the composition of that applicant pool, looking back at the 2 major pools there, 16% to 17%, it's pretty close. It didn't change too much with our Hispanic pool. And then you'll look at the Anglo-White, 37.9, 36, so it stays about the same. And then at the bottom, you can see our contract employees there over time, which contract employees are all employees not including adjunct. And then there's our number there. So if you'll look at the bottom one again, other unknown, it went from 20% in 13-14 to less than 1% because we were able to identify them. And so we'll go to the next slide. And here, this one tells us the applicant pool for management and faculty. So if you look at the top part, that's management recruitments. We only hired 4 folks there, 4, so 2 of them were Hispanic and 1 Asian and 1 white Anglo-American. And then we had for faculty, we had 18, and that's the breakdown of where they were. So it looks like we did some good stuff there with diversity there. Out of the 18. And then now we have our diversity pools for classified. And the way I did this slide is because they're divided into the 5 categories there. I looked at the overall. We had 15 total, so we had, 10 of those folks were in a ethnic group. So we had 5 Anglo and 10, so that is improving our diversity numbers there. And then at the bottom, it'll just show you out of the 15, where did they fall? So if you'll look at the The area that we really want to look at is the service area to see is that where most of the hires were in the service area. If you'll look there, we had 2, 3, 4, 5 of those 10 come out of the service area.
Just a quick question on slide 18. For the applicant pools in 16, 17, I noticed that for other and unknown, it's at 30%. I was wondering why that is.
Applicants, it's voluntary that they disclose. So you'll have some folks just do not want to identify at that point, and we can't really mandate it.
But under workforce, is it possible to?
Under the workforce, we can, because they're getting payroll information, and we have a better chance of getting that. For the most part, they're going to identify once we hire them. Mhm. And we'll go back to where we were. I think that was the last slide there. We'll go to the next one there. And that's just there, we approved our plan in April of 2017 before I came on board. We'd made some changes recently. And we have a charge here through the Equal Employment Opportunity to identify strategies through the multiple measures that we identify through our EO plan to make progress either through training, professional development, doing a good job of training our hiring committees to be aware of unconscious biases in hiring and things like that. So we're going to partner with Luis and beef it up a little bit with our selection committee training when it comes to equal employment opportunity. And that's really all I had for you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Jonathan?
No, I just want to say thank you for compiling all this. I've been waiting to see something like this for a while, so it's good to all have it. It does indicate that we have some problems, though, but things that we can solve.
I think so, yes.
Marianne?
I just want to emphasize, and this seems odd, I'm sure you don't need it emphasized, but this is not a report because we are interested in the staff per se. It's a report because we're interested in the relationship between the people who work in this institution and our students. And it turns out that the research is overwhelming now, that if you have students who are diverse and a faculty that is not, you do not connect with the students. So this is a student-centered report in a way.
It is. I didn't want to get into the research, but thank you for mentioning that. There is plenty of research out there that shows that. But, you know, looking at it realistically also, because we don't have high turnovers, it would take us a long time to get there. So one of the other strategies that we try to employ is professional development through different trainings. And that's what I think we'll focus on both areas, but I think we'll get there. And that's some of what we want to implement into our training with our hiring committees is the research behind it. And there's a lot out there. And maybe even bring in Q to do some work with us. The Center for Urban Education from USC, they do some really good work with this. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's a very good and important comment, Marianne. Jonathan?
So for a year from now, would we be able to look at the however many people were hired in 2018 and see the breakdown of those people separated out compared to the
Yes.
college? Okay, that'd be great.
This is our first step here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I thought what you said about the service area demographics too would be good to have in here
Yes.
next time.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think it's just, thank you. It's very well presented, very actually easy to read and clear. And I think this is more, I think, just maybe items for future board meetings. There's 510 adjunct faculty. It's double than our full-time faculty. This is head count, right? These are people, 510 other folks that I don't ever get to really, I mean, I know there is a process. I don't want to get into it. I know they have representation at Academic Senate and all that. But, you know, at least when you're looking at the 33% students, and at least when the redistricting happened for Santa Barbara City College, at that time in 2012, the city took a dipstick of about 33% Hispanic Latino. And so I don't know what we are now as a city. when we do add the full-time faculty and adjunct faculty of Hispanic Latino, I mean, it does get up to the 30s, so that's somewhat, you know, close. I know the adjuncts, faculty also have, and I know Sally, oh my gosh, what's her last name? Yes. They have their group, as I know they emailed for events or things like that. I would like, I mean, I know we talk about joint board meetings. I would like an opportunity to get to know those folks too. This is 510 people that are interfacing with our students. And I think that, yes, if you can have the research on mirrors and windows and if you see each other or whatnot, but there's also great value in professional learning, in getting to know people, in building some of those cultural competencies to be culturally proficient and know how to connect and interface with all demographics of kids. You know, just because you're Hispanic, Latino, but maybe you didn't grow up in poverty or in gangs, you're gonna be uncomfortable. Maybe you're more comfortable with, you know, so I speak that for myself too. I know as an advisor at TAP, you know, we would be like, oh, Francisco, can you take this student? Or they'd be like, Vero, take that student. And because we knew what our experiences and what we would be able to connect with students with. And it didn't matter what we looked like, it just was a matter of what our experiences and what we felt comfortable with. So I don't know, I think I'm interested in, that's a big number, and these are a lot of folks that are interfacing with their students. It's double the amount of our full-time faculty. So if we can make that happen, I'd really appreciate that. And Jonathan?
I agree.
I'm on it. We'll look at it.
Thank you.
It's obviously a very critical part of.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm reading the Education Master Plan right beside it with the strategic goals to build programs that enhance student equity, access, and success across all subgroups. So that is right in line.
I think we've segued into items for future board consideration. That was a segue. We've dealt with the campus center report, so that's where we are. So we have Veronica's suggestion relating to adjuncts, and we have David's comments about equity, and do we have others that folks want?
Really need to clean this up, this list.
We
at
do
some
need to
point.
clean it up. Some of the stuff is going to come off.
Rank them too at another board meeting? Like
Prioritize them.
We could prioritize. I know that at the last board meeting, there was a comment about prioritizing the Academic Senate meeting and the Santa Barbara Unified, and that would be CARP as well. Those meetings, and we're already working on trying to schedule that, even though that will obviously, I think, move it to next year. David, and Associated Student Government, was I reading your mind? Yes, that is, I think, a priority as well, so.
And the city council, joint city council and our trustee meeting. You know, we've been waiting for, you know, what just happened to take place.
The
so that-
election.
Yeah, the election, so.
What happened?
Yeah. So, all right. But other than that, which has been on our radar, others? Okay.
I had one, but it's not, I don't have words for it in my head.
We can give you a minute.
How about something like board communication or something? Like how the board communicates?
Communication, okay.
Or a study session with Luz.
Anyone else? We're fine then. All right, we will consider ourselves adjourned.